How's it going, legends? Today I want to talk about how to get death metal tones. Now I'll preface this by saying these are all just my opinions, because when you go down this tone rabbit hole, there's a lot of strong opinions out there. I would say if you're really interested in this whole idea about what gear people are using, Facebook groups, just online forums, chats, there's lots of channels out there that specialize in talking about this subject, and also invest a lot of time and money into searching for different types of amps, pedals. It's a whole other rabbit hole you can go down besides learning how to play your instrument. So with that being said, here's just my ideas and how I get my tones for the videos. Now, sometimes I'll just use the camera with the attached mic. It's a shotgun Rode mic, and I just get in the room sound using the cabs behind me, and I'm using tube heads. Now I'm also using a solid state head, and I use a thing called an amp switcher by KAG, and it's a amp switcher that I can run my pedal board into, and I can have any of the heads behind me. And I also use a thing from Two Notes called a Torpedo Live. Now this is what's called digital or interface, or a load box. And so this, what it does is capture those amps behind me, which are tube heads, converts them into digital, which then runs into an audio interface, which then runs into my DAW. So you need this in between to get into your recording software, which your DAW is a digital audio workstation. Then once you're in your DAW, you have to start thinking about how you're going to capture that amp. So that's where the digital load box comes into play, because then what it does is it creates IRs, or impulse responses, which are pretending to be mics on amplifiers, mics on speaker boxes, not the amplifier. So it's a mic that's placed on a speaker cabinet, which was the traditional way that you would record an amp, which you put a mic, SM57, condenser mics, ribbon mics, dynamic mics. Then we're getting into recording. So there's in the room sound, about how to get a sound, buying an amp. Then there's also trying to capture an amp, and this is a whole, goes into a recording type of thing that you're going to be searching for, how to get better at that. Then you're looking at what amps to buy. It's a lot to cover, and it's not a one size fits all thing. Like how I like to record, so I like to use my tube heads converted into digital with IRs. If I had more money, I'd have an extra room full of cabs and expensive mics, and I'd do it the way a professional studio would. But now with technology, this is the way I've chosen to do it. You can also use pedals to boost the front end of amplifiers. Classic TS808 from Ibanez. You can use pedals that are based off a Boss HM2. We've got the Lone Wolf Audio Left Hand Wrath. And then, so that type of, that's the chainsaw tone, which is Swedish death metal, the chainsaw death metal tone. You can use preamp pedals. This one's based off an Ampeg 140C, the old classic Marshall sound. You can even get like people reproducing old Randall preamps. You can get the Marshall Vowel State 8100, which Chuck from Def was using on the records back in the day. So the more you get down, it's like what tone, what era, like 80s, 90s, 2000s up to now. Back in the 80s, 90s, people were using boosted Marshalls or modded Marshalls. Then they were using dual rectifiers. Then we start getting into now with the PV5150s became really popular. There's just, depending on the genre, depending where it's recorded, depending what region, this is a big rabbit hole. So what we look into now, and we've got my DAW right here. So first off, we'll bring up This is the software for what's called torpedo wall of sound. Then what you've got here is selections of cabinets. Now all I have to do, if I've bought these ones, right? Fortin ones, we've got Rectos, and here's Eric Rattan of Hate Eternal and Cannibal Corpse. He's got a pack with 2 notes because he's also a recording engineer, recorded lots of Cannibal Corpse, lots of albums. He's really awesome in the studio as well as an awesome guitar player. So what you've got here, you just select one of his cabs. Then what you can do, you can select one of his, or one of the mics associated with the pack. So you can have dynamic, which is off a SM57. You can have ribbon and condenser, and so they change it. The room that you're in, you could be, come here, when you hit reverb, then you can select, are you in a cathedral? That's going to add lots of reverb to the sound. Are you in a basement? Then you go here, and it's going to be another cab. So then you can say, okay, I'll add another one. How about I add, instead of a Rattan, I'll just add a Recto. Then I can come here and I can do the same again. Pick what sort of mic, there's your 57. You can come here, you could EQ the actual cab and what's getting picked up. You can come over to here, power amps if you want. You can change what type of tubes you're using, modded, 6L6s, EL84s, 34s, KT88. So this, it just keeps going and going, what you could do. Then another option, you could then add, and all this does is keep stacking. So now you've got a simulation of 4 4x12, which is what I like to do a lot. And then you can go to each one. You can also come into here and you've got things called IRs. Now this is another one I like to use. It's from Christian Kohler. He's also got a YouTube channel, really informative when it comes to recording. You got the DV77 speaker by Eminence. That was made for Mick Thompson of Slipknot. You got blended speakers, which it'll be blending a DV77 with a CV75 or a CV75 with a Swamp Thing. It's just like, keeps going and going and going. And then these all create different tones. Then if you're not recording all the amplifiers and all that type of stuff, now we can get into a thing called VSTs and plugins. This one's from Neural DSP. Ola likes to use the Plini plugin from Neural DSP. I've got the Soldano. I like this one's a classic one too. You can come into the pedal section of it. You got different overdrives. You can EQ it. You can select speakers. You can even start importing different custom IRs into your plugin. Then you've got time-based effects. You can add delay and reverb. It just keeps going and going. So this whole thing is like literally endless of what you could do. The guitar tuning, the pickups you use, which is a whole nother hotly debated topic. I'd say the more gain that you add, pickups don't make as much difference, but to me it's a feel thing, especially through when I'm recording. I don't find the pickups make as much difference, but when I'm playing through my cabinets and I'm playing the way the amp responds and the way the cab responds, 100% pickups make a difference. Like an active Seymour Duncan Blackout AHB2 sounds nothing like a Seymour Duncan JB or a 59 or Damasio PAF or an old school Gibson PAF. So you can just really, there's so many avenues you can go down, and you can go down the pedal, you can look at preamps, you can research old school. Like I've really gone down the rabbit hole of how to capture tones, and you could have more amps. Like I'm very satisfied with the amps I've got behind me, and I won't go too in depth into what I've got, but I've got Australian made amps, custom amplifiers, and the classic EVH. I got that because the EL34 and I'd say the progression of Eddie's sound was a Marshall, then he got Soldanos. There's a lot of talk about 5150s are basically like a modded Soldano, but then this is, yeah, once again, these are all just my opinions, and it gets hotly debated, and people are very passionate when it comes to amp and their knowledge on how these circuits were made. You've got people who build amps, you've got people who demo amps on YouTube, who are fighting for the title that they know the most about all of this sort of stuff. But this is answering a question that I was asked, and so I thought, you know what, let's just talk about it, and these are my opinions, and this is how I capture my tones. The latest couple of vids I've been trying to do direct into the door, so you don't hear my pick attack or the pick making a noise. I'd say a bit more professional sound there and a more chunky tone. So there's my thoughts on how to get metal tones or deaf metal tones, and there is no one size fits all. It's very, people are very proud, I'd say, guitar players who have been in bands and who record about the tone they've got. It's like almost becomes their signature thing, and then it becomes, you can then sell signature amps, signature pedals. We could even start talking about that, because I would say too, there's a money aspect behind the way people can chase tones. Like there would be, if they're getting endorsed, then they'll say, this is the amp that I use, this is the tone that I love. But then if someone comes along and says, here's more money, they definitely, hey, if you're going to give me 20 grand or 50 grand, yeah, I'm going to say this is the amp, or I will record an album with that. Not to say all people do that, but just another aspect of this whole, how do you get a tone? And this is like a whole other rabbit hole. So, hey, this is my thoughts on it, and just opinions, and everybody can have their own opinions and disagree with me as well, which is cool. So until next time, take care of yourself, look after each other, and keep smashing out those riffs. See you in the next one. Catch us later.